Good day from Wall Street. Thank you for joining us here at the Wall Street Ledger. I am pleased to have with us on the line Mr. Wayne Hiley. He's the Managing Director and CEO at Peninsula Energy. Peninsula Energy currently trades shares on the Australian Stock Exchange on ticker PEN, as well over-the-counter market, ticker PENMF. Wayne, thank you for joining us here at the Wall Street Ledger.
My pleasure, Nick. It's great to be with you today.
It is our pleasure. Really excited to get into the story. Great projects, operations, and if you could dive into that and give us a further detail of what's going on currently in the U.S. markets.
We have the Lance project in Wyoming, and the Lance project is a particularly good uranium project because of its size and scale. Lance carries about 53 million pounds of JORC-compliant uranium resources, which means it's a long-life, long-term uranium project. A lot of companies in our peer group have 50 million pounds of resource added up over multitude of projects, but Peninsula Energy has been fortunate to identify a jurisdiction and a single project with a great uranium resource. We've put that project into production in late 2015, idled it in 2019 as we prepared to transition it to a new process chemistry. That effort has come along very nicely for us. We have all the regulatory permissions, and we're doing the design, and we're ready to move into production again when the market signals the opportunity is right. In the meantime, the Lance project is operating a field demonstration of the new chemistry. We want to show the markets and really ourselves that the chemistry that we have selected through laboratory testing is the right way to go for the future of the project. We think using the low pH chemistry, which is the global leading way to produce uranium around the world, the lowest cost producers use the same technique we're moving to. We think that that's going to give us a great opportunity to lower our overall operating costs and enhance our overall recovery rate from the resources. So we're excited about the future production opportunities at Lance. We're preparing for that with rigorous testing and demonstrations, but we've also taken the risk off at that project. We've removed the regulatory risk by completing all of the regulatory steps necessary to move to that chemistry when we're ready to resume.
Touch upon the annual report that you put out to shareholders.
Certainly, we run on a fiscal year that ends in June, so we've just recently released our annual report. I think the big feature for this year is that we've retired our debt. As a company, over the last 5 years or so, we've run $17 to $20 million US in long-term debt. It was an imperative for us to retire that debt. It was maturing and was due in October. But we took the initiative to get ahead of that. We did an equity raise in June that brought us enough cash to not only retire the debt, but to leave us in a very healthy cash position. Going forward, Peninsula's looking at revenues from our sales, our uranium contract sales, and the cash on hand, and really certainly in a position where we're not needing to raise capital to keep the lights on. This company is now very well positioned, and that's, I think, one of the big highlights coming out of the annual report. The other highlights, really from the last year, was all of the efforts that we put into the permitting for the Lance, came to fruition. We received the permit authorizations, the amendments that we needed to move the Lance project forward with the chemistry that we envisioned to be ideal for that project. So, I think those are probably the biggest highlights from the annual report. But, the takeaway is that today, Peninsula is debt-free. It's well-funded for moving forward into the future, and we're prepared for the future.
That's amazing news. You don't hear that quite often. So let's switch gears a bit here. Do you feel the investment community fully understands the company's opportunity and value potential?
Well, I think because of the pathway we've taken, the investment community has probably underestimated Peninsula for quite a while. When you go to the market like we did in 2017 and say, we need to transform our project, we need to move from the chemistry that we have to a different chemistry that we believe to be a lot more effective, that raises a lot of doubts. So we went through a period of time where we had to work really hard, to keep the confidence in the investors. And then this most recent equity raise meant that we put quite a number of shares into the marketplace. Since or subsequent to that equity raise, there's been high volumes of trading. Our shares today are finding solid ownership hands. We're finding institutions and retail investors that are interested in uranium as a long-term play and that recognize now that Peninsula Energy is probably in the best position going forward of any of the junior uranium companies.
I had a chance myself to look at this board and management team, and wow, is it experienced. So talk about most notably how experienced and how many years you have in the industry, and also the other board members and management team at Peninsula, if you can.
Well, I am a career uranium operations guy. I came into the uranium industry right out of the university back in 1988. That means I have over 32 years of experience in uranium production. I have a metallurgical engineering degree, emphasis on mineral processing. So it's really a chemical engineering degree that focus really tightly on how to recover metals from minerals, excuse me. So with my 32 years of uranium operations experience, and there's not a lot of people that actually came into the space concurrent or contemporarily with me and stuck with it for that long. It's created a lot of opportunities for me over the years. But I've been involved in uranium production operations in South Texas and Wyoming throughout my career with a number of different companies. But that doesn't mean that I have the most experience in uranium production in our company. We have Ralph Canode. Ralph is our operations man at the site at the Lance Projects. He's the CEO of our subsidiary, Strata Energy. He's been in the uranium production industry north of 40 years. He's worked around the world in Kazakhstan, Australia, and the United States producing uranium. He has a world of experience that he brings, and is just an absolutely solid individual to lead our team at the project site. And he's attracted some very good talent at the project site with very experienced and senior geologists and regulatory folks. All told, our site personnel have over 150 years of direct uranium production experience. And that's just incredible. You just don't find teams with that type of depth, in single companies anymore. And then on the board side, I think we have depth in all of the areas that a company needs depth. Our chairman has spent his career in mine finance. He's a terrific gentleman who knows how to run a company and knows how to properly keep it financially sound. We have also our former CFO on our board as a non-executive director, another gentleman who really knows his way around the Australian markets and really knows corporate finance. Importantly, on our board, we have a non-executive director who used to be the lead fuel buyer for a large U.S. nuclear utility. So he knows the uranium markets. He's a huge source of knowledge anytime we're looking at uranium marketing questions, and a big contributor. And then on the technical side, we have the former CEO of the company Uranium One that owned the Honeymoon project in Australia. He's a strong individual technically and in the marketing side, or uranium markets and financial markets. So a small board, 5 people, including myself, but a wealth of experience and all, checking all the right boxes of what you want to see on the board of directors in a company.
Yep. Experience will always trump numbers. Um, so with that being said, with the company being so experienced, being, playing a big part of the company and why it's been so successful, what do you also feel sets the company so apart and is that much more, I guess, better than the other ASX and some of the other over-the-counter market stocks currently?
So that's an easy one. That's practically a softball, Nick. We have one thing that every other company in the junior uranium space wants, and we probably have it uniquely. We have a large contract portfolio for sales of uranium. I referred to it earlier in our interview as a source of ongoing revenue. Let me explain. When Peninsula was putting this project into production in the years following Fukushima, but pre 2015, we needed to contract some uranium sales to make the project financeable, and they went out and they did that. They contracted a long-term book, and that contract sales book goes out to the year 2030. We have 5.5 million pounds of deliveries remaining in that contract book. And because of when the contracts were signed and the market prices were actually higher at that point in time, we enjoy a premium in our contractual deliveries against the spot market today. The average price of the deliveries over the term is $51 to $53 a pound. So while today the uranium spot market sits around $30 a pound, Peninsula enjoys the opportunity to sell into contracts at $50 plus dollars a pound. So that's it. I mean, there's one thing that you're just not going to find with any other junior. What does that mean for Peninsula? It means recurring revenues on a year in and year out basis. So we talked about this that we're presently not producing. That doesn't mean that we can't fulfill our contracts. In 2021, we have contractual sales for about 450,000 pounds. We also entered into a contract for the purchase of about 400,000 pounds for next year. That'll go directly to deliver into those contracts. And because the spot market today is priced below our production costs, we're actually realizing a higher margin by satisfying our sales contracts through purchases rather than production. But when the uranium price goes up, and we all expect that to happen, Peninsula will be ready to re-enter the production mode. We think it's going to take us 6 months from a final investment decision to be back into production, and probably just a little over a year for us to start hitting our nameplate production capacity at the site today, which is about 1.1 million pounds. Another distinguishing factor for Peninsula, a very large resource, but also a license to produce at a larger or higher rate than virtually everybody else in the United States. We have a license that allows us to produce up to 3 million pounds per year. Our capacity today is only 1.1, but in the right market conditions, there's really nothing holding us back on the regulatory side to expanding our facilities and producing up to 3 million pounds a year.
So where do you see the company then positioned in about a 2 to 3 year period if we pick it back on what you just said?
Yeah, I think over the course of 2021, you're going to see a lot of news flow out of the company with respect to the field demonstrations on the low pH. We've just started that demonstration in August, and the field is really just now starting to move into the chemical zone or the chemistry that we want for uranium production. So, moving into 2021, we're going to focus our efforts on the field demonstration, and we're focusing our efforts on obtaining further sales contracts to support increased production rates at the site. I think in the long term, Peninsula Energy needs to be producing 2 to 3 million pounds a year at Lance, and I think we're going to see the projects ramping up. I think 2021 will probably see the investment decision to put the project back into production following positive results from the field demonstrations. And I think that you'll see us moving into production and starting to deliver into our contracts from on-site production in 2022 and forward. I think you'll see us very systematic and deliberate in our expansion of our capacity. A spot price of $40 doesn't mean we should go out and build a 3 million pound expansion at our project. It means that we should be producing, improving our production rates, building our customer base, and then expanding our production rates.
So, in conclusion, then, Wayne, why should then a potential investor consider the company as a good long-term investment opportunity?
Well, quite frankly, I think all of the hard work that we've put into the last several years has positioned Peninsula as one of the best positioned junior uranium companies. We have an existing project with modern facilities. We have contracts. We're debt free. We have cash flow from our contracts. That's going to sustain us. Like I said, we're not going to be a company that is going to need to be out in the markets raising money to keep the lights on. We have a good long runway, and we have continuous revenues year in, year out until the year 2030 based on our current contract book. We will grow. We'll grow systematically and sensibly, and I think we're going to be positioned very well in the uranium markets as the markets develop, whether it be through the initiatives of the U.S. government and the uranium strategic uranium reserve buying program, or through the natural growth of the uranium markets, where supply and demand seem to be so far out of sync right now. So we're well positioned. We're ready to go. Very low capital requirements, very short time frame to put the project back into production. We're flexible. We have in situ recovery, the best, and using low pH chemistry, which is the best way to produce uranium around the world. I think that sums it up.
I agree. Debt free, extremely strong and well experienced management team, and a great book of business, in my eyes, make Peninsula Energy a very exciting investment opportunity. Wayne, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us here at the Wall Street Ledger.
My pleasure as well, Nick. Thank you.
Likewise, our featured guest, everyone, has been Wayne Highlight. He's the managing director and CEO at Peninsula Energy. Peninsula Energy currently traded shares on the Australian Stock Exchange on ticker PEN. And for all you American traders, it's over-the-counter markets, ticker PENMF. Thank you for joining us.